When we get a new WWE game, the first thing that many, if not all of us, wonder, what's new in this year's game? What are the brand new features? What are the updates to gameplay? Any new match types? We wonder about it all. But another thing that we wonder about is whether or not something's been removed from the new game that was in a previous game. I mean, it happens a lot, especially in WWE games. There's even been some rare times where a brand new feature, mode, or match type just got dropped after debuting only the game before. So let's take a look at 10 of these. When Smackdown Just Bring It hit the shelves in November 2001, it brought with it a feature that many at the time were excited for, that feature being crowd fighting. No other WWE game had allowed the players to take the fight to the audience. This was genuinely revolutionary at the time for wrestling video games. We all saw it on TV, and now we could do it in the games. Although it was very primitive in its design, with a bunch of 2D crowd models making way for you to fight beyond the barricade, it did its job fine. You could even find some exclusive weapons only found in these crowded areas. So we all thought that gone were the days of being confined to just the ring. We could now take the fight to the audience, and you know what? It wasn't great in the first game, but surely it would be much better in the follow-up game. Well, as quickly as it arrived, crowd fighting was gone in Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. THQ and Ukes decided to leave this feature on the cutting room floor, and we wouldn't see it return until it was admittedly done much better in Smackdown vs. Raw 2007. At least that version lasted for 2 games before being cut in 2009. And speaking of Smackdown Shut Your Mouth, it introduced us to free roaming for the first time in the WWE game season mode. Just Bring It allowed for kind of free roaming, you roam freely but were on a 2-minute time limit for some reason. Now, all limits were off, and the developers decided to go completely all in on the idea of a truly free roam WWE area. You could go into the boiler room, the parking lot, the locker rooms, the offices, and even go outside where things get much crazier. You could go to the train station, catch a train, and go to WWE's restaurant in New York. On top of that, you could bump into other WWE superstars who may or may not be friendly. It was up to you to talk to them and find out if you had an ally or an enemy. This free roaming feature made Smackdown Shut Your Mouth season mode so memorable, but it was memorable for the wrong reasons too, as it was the only WWE game to ever have this level of free roaming. Here Comes the Pain, for all its good, actually did limit this to just picking and choosing which areas to go backstage at a menu screen, and even then it would only work if there was someone in that backstage area. It tried to be more seamless and fast-paced by helping you find wrestlers quickly, but where's the fun in that? We loved going on the train and random journeys before even thinking about clicking through the season menu to get our match that night. Smackdown vs. Raw 2006 brought us the double KO feature, and it really changed the game in terms of the gameplay, heading for a more simulation feel. You don't get more simulation than the selling of 2 superstars being knocked out as they slowly tried to get back up to make the count in time. This feature could only be activated if you had just hit a big move on an opponent. A finisher, for example, and you were both completely out of stamina at the same time. You'll see your character collapse to the mat and the ref will begin to count. A minigame will then play out with both players trying to get their stamina back by hitting X at the right time on the stamina meter. If you both fill up the stamina meters, then you'll get back up and the fight will continue after the classic dramatic wrestling moment. However, if neither gets their stamina back in time, then the match will be called off and it'll go down as a draw. It was such an awesome feature, which made its removal in the next game, Smackdown vs. Raw 2007, such a puzzling decision. This was the perfect simulation-based minigame to have in the games, and just like that it was gone. This wasn't the only simulation-based minigame to be cut in SVR07, as we have this next. The sleeper hold count was another simulation innovation that was added to Smackdown vs. Raw 2006. Suddenly, the sleeper hold wasn't just a random move that may or may not get a random submission win. It would turn into a minigame like the double KO would, and add to the drama of the match. In this minigame, the ref would begin to count to 3, and during each count you'll have the chance to escape or even reverse the position. If the count reaches 3 without you or the opponent escaping, then a KO will be called and the match will be over. Who would have thought this incredible system, which was way ahead of its time and still not in the games today, would be gone in just the next game? Smackdown vs. Raw 2006 will always have that special feel to many WWE games fans because of removals such as the sleep hold count and being the only game to ever have them. So if you want to see them, you had to keep revisiting SVR06, which is one of the many reasons why fans still to this day like coming back to a game that released well over 18 years ago. Now it's Smackdown vs. Raw 2007's time to introduce something that will be cut in just the next game after. The ladder match had some significant improvements made to the match type in SVR07. There would be new ladder moves, a new grabbing of the object system, and a new match variant for the Money in the Bank match. But we're going to talk about the grabbing of the object system, as there was an extra strategy added to pulling down the object that was only seen in this game. The grabbing of the object was actually connected to the stamina meter that all superstars would have in the game. As you grabbed the object, you would lose stamina doing so, and once fully depleted you could no longer reach for the object. Or if you went up the ladder with low stamina, then you'd be unable to get the object or only be able to grab it for hardly any time whatsoever. Depending on who you ask, some might say it was a good thing to remove in the next game. Some might like the selling of not being able to reach for the title, and others might say this was actually a thing, because we didn't know until recent research reminded us that yes, this was a thing. Smackdown vs. Raw 2008 gave us the Hall of Fame mode, a feature that allowed us to recreate classic WWE moments with an extra challenge, usually completing them on legendary difficulty, the hardest in WWE games. You'd have to revisit classic matchups like Austin and Brett in a submission match, defeating the Hardys in a tag ladder match, or winning Money in the Bank match as Edge. There were all kinds of matches to do that would increase your Hall of Fame rank. Completing all challenges would get you the rank of Hall of Famer, and each challenge completed would allow you to unlock new things in the WWE shop, including moves and superstars. This new take of a challenge mode would only last one game, as in Smackdown vs. Raw 2009, the entire concept was taken out, with more of the unlockables being inserted within the Road to WrestleMania mode rather than a challenge mode. How do you feel about this one? Was this the right decision that was made? I mean, it wasn't the biggest mode, but for those looking for a rewarding challenge with unlockables tied to it, certainly would have been upset by the lack of Hall of Fame mode in SVR09. WWE 2K20 brought us the 2K Originals as a post-release DLC after the disastrous launch of WWE 2K20. This DLC really needed to get people talking and interested in the game. It did get a buzz for its unique concept of it being wacky and wild versions of WWE superstars in different universes, like a horror-themed universe, a post-apocalyptic universe, and a universe based on Southport Regional Wrestling, a made-up 80s-themed wrestling company. Unfortunately, it didn't manage to get much interest in the game. It did, however, get people talking. But talking about how bad the DLC was and how half-baked it came across, with the concept of the mode being praised, but the execution being laughable for how bad it was. The character designs and stories were all negatively received, and unsurprisingly, this concept was scrapped in the next game, WWE 2K22. Many fans were happy it wasn't in the next game, but there's still those who still think, what could have been had this mode been done right? Smackdown vs. Raw 2011 was all about physics-based fun within matches, such as the TLC and ladder matches. You could fall through a ton of tables, ladders would drop in unique ways, and new ladder moves would be added to the game. One of the other things that was introduced was the feature where wrestlers could fall into the ropes after falling from a ladder, which added an extra layer of realism with the match type. As when wrestlers do get pushed off ladders, they usually spring right off the ropes to sell the fall. Like all in this video, it was removed in the next game, WWE 12. Supposedly, it was done due to issues when colliding with the ropes, and instead of fixing it, THQ decided to just completely cut it, and it's never been in a WWE game since. Smackdown vs. Raw 2007 brought us interactive moves for the first time in the series, dubbed Ultimate Control Moves. And one of these allowed us to use the announcer's table as a weapon. If you could grab your opponent and brought them towards the announcer's table, then the player who dragged the opponent will take a cord from the monitors and begin choking the opponent with the wire. All interactive, by the way, so you could choose how much you wanted to choke the opponent with the wire. Smackdown vs. Raw 2008 would remove this feature due to a ban on choking with weapons in the WWE, and WWE slowly moving away from the more brutal moves that had been commonplace in the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression Era. And lastly, there was the casket match in Smackdown 2. This rare match type was surprisingly added to the game alongside ladder, table, TLC, and Hell in a Cell matches. It was a pretty basic way of doing a casket match in a WWE game. You had a casket where you'd literally pick up and smash as a weapon, PS1 era WWE games for you, and to put them in the casket you just had to Irish whip them towards the casket, and while hanging on the edge of the casket you had to beat them up enough until the random casket lid appeared and locked the opponent inside the casket. Yeah, this match type was not done that well, and its removal in Smackdown Just Bring It made sense somewhat, as we hoped for the match type to be worked on and then brought back at a later date. However, it never returned other than a showcase mode match in WWE 2K15. And there you have it, 10 features that were introduced in WWE games but were dropped after just one WWE game. Which feature do you miss the most? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you all in the next video.